All right. So where are we going to jump in today? So it's funny. So we were quasi just chatting a couple minutes ago before we started recording this thing, and Emily just jumped right into it, which I love.
Just calling me out here.
No, it's not calling. It was just funny. We're like, oh, we should probably start recording this at some point before we just waste all of our lives talking about nothing and not actually capturing any of it. So instead of just kind of going through stuff today, I think the plan initially was to pros and cons, NetSuite versus Intacct, kind of, I don't want to say, competition, but we're just going to look at the two one-on-one, kind of compare them, good, bad, ugly. Why would you pick one over the other? And then out of nowhere, Emily, she's just like, I hate NetSuite. They're garbage. It's awful.
Trash. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely going to get into that, and I definitely want to share my story because I think it's interesting. But yeah, little preview is I don't like NetSuite too much, but we'll get into that.
And as a disclaimer, if anyone from NetSuite is listening, that is Emily's independent opinion. So if and when we ever end up working together in some capacity, I love it. I love everybody.
Yeah, I'm really limiting myself here.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's all right. But I don't know. I thought we were like, we should probably start recording at this point because coming in hot on the strong opinion, which I absolutely love.
Seems to be going around.
I'm waiting to find out if this is like just a personal pet peeve or I want to know the story.
Yeah, were you like cut out of like an original founder of Oracle's will or something, and you?
Yeah, yeah. I actually, when I was 3 years old, I wrote code for Oracle, and they said I wasn't old enough, so I couldn't get a cut. So,
man, and then you went into marketing. I'm
and then went to marketing and sales.
I'm more confused.
Yeah, my life story is very confusing.
Well, we should dive into that at some point here. But since Emily, you seem really impartial, on NetSuite, which I think at this point we've all figured out that's the case. Do you want to maybe just give us like a history of kind of NetSuite and in an unbiased way? Let's put it that way. Let's just get the people.
My unbiased, yes. Who
are they?
I did some research on NetSuite, so I do have some notes. So NetSuite was NetLedger, was founded in 1998. Excuse me, I'm very dyslexic. But it was acquired by Oracle in 2016. So, and I just want to compare it to Sage real quick. Intacct was founded in 1999. I think acquired by Intacct around 2016 as well. Matt,
17,
do you know?
Yeah, 17. 17.
So kind of the same story there. They tout themselves as being a suite solution. So wrapped into their financials, they have CRM, e-commerce, payroll, business intelligence. They have about 40,000 customers worldwide. They have offices in 20 different countries. They have about 8,000 employees globally. They sell, like Sage, they sell directly through NetSuite, or they work with VAR partners, kind of the same as Sage.
I have a question for you there. And when you said the 8,000, is that just in the NetSuite or is that Oracle as a whole?
That's globally.
Okay.
For Oracle, yeah.
All right.
And then their fiscal year is May 31st.
Exciting stuff.
And riveting.
That was actually more unbiased than I envisioned it being.
Yeah, thanks. It was literally my bulleted notes.
Just like deadpan delivery, which I love because we'll get into the opinion stuff kind of in a minute here. But Matt, do you have any experience directly? I don't want to say competing, converting, selling. What's kind of because everyone knows obviously Sage Intacct is one of your bread and butters. But when we look at like NetSuite, how much experience have you really come across kind of in your organization?
So NetSuite competes day in and day out with Intacct, especially in my work with supporting the direct sales team. We see NetSuite, depending on the vertical. So like nonprofit, you see them a little bit less. Financial services, almost every single time. Professional services, almost every single time. So you kind of, it really depends on the vertical and so forth. Really, really comparable products. So I have some experience using, or I should say my team. I don't want to overstate my own experience. But my team has experience using that, delivering accounting solutions. We are not an implementer of NetSuite, nor have we ever been an implementer of NetSuite. But in order for us to do a good job when it comes to scoping and providing client feedback, it's really important to understand the product and understand the differences between the two products. So I do spend time keeping abreast of what is going on with NetSuite, what they're up to when it comes to their investments and sales tactics as much as I can. I am a little bit more partial or impartial than Emily is. I don't have any particular hate for them. I think as our organization has just decided to, what we say is bleed green. So, we want to be a mile deep in our knowledge. So we're a one product kind of organization when it comes to implementations. That's not anything to say that NetSuite's not a good product to go, but I do think there's some very specific use cases and some information that's really interesting when it comes to making a decision around the selection process.
That's interesting. In the sense that I love the bleed green thing. I've never heard that from you before, which is kind of unique. Why? So I guess why at some point you made that decision, like, hey, we're
Yeah.
going to implement just Intacct. That's going to be our go to every single time. I would imagine that you were evaluating all the competitors, including NetSuite, at the time when you kind of made that decision, or do you just like fall backwards into that? And we're like, well, we have some clients using it. Let's just keep this train rolling.
I just closed my eyes and I threw a dart and I hit Sage. No, it was the three products. We looked at Microsoft, we looked at NetSuite, we looked at Intacct as the ERP of choice. I think there's two real components that we that made a big difference. I mean, Intacct is sponsored by the AICPA. It's the only sponsored product by the AICPA, and that goes a long way when it comes to trust in the accounting world. And then the second is, and it's kind of funny, I think I saw it on G2. There's a quote that says, the user experience, NetSuite really looks like it was built in the 1990s, where if you look at the user interface of Intacct, it's far more intuitive. It's far more more closely aligned to what you'd expect out of a QuickBooks or a Xero online product from a navigation perspective. It's an easier training. So for us, we saw that as some huge wins when it came to adoption of our staff and our clients.
From my UX experience, by the way, it was pretty funny. So I go to a lot of these conferences, right? And everyone always talks about their software and, blah, 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 and why I should introduce them to all my clients that I work with. And there was a small like startup accounting software organization that's trying to compete with like QuickBooks, NetSuite, Intacct, Xero, all the big players out there. And the pitch from the sales rep who just like cornered me in a hallway was, we've gamified the accounting software business.
Gamified?
Gamified, correct. Yeah.
Can you define that for me?
That was my question, because all right, I'm like, you got me hooked. You got me hooked, guy. What are we talking about? I'm not going to name the company too, because I don't want to publicly throw them under the bus and see if they can make it. But he essentially said, you know how Robinhood is gamified trading? Like investment trading. He's like, that's what we've done to the accounting sector. We've made it fun for all the staff to manage the books of their clients. And I'm just like, what in the world? I know. Well, I didn't want. I'm like, I'm not doing a demo. Like, we're done there. And then just kind of cordially, that's great. Yeah, I'd love to keep in touch. Blah blah blah. But from a user experience perspective, that was interesting that you mentioned that, in the sense that Intacct versus NetSuite, you found that one was pretty superior to the other in terms of like build, feel, how people move through the software.
There's also there's also reality that from a ease of use perspective, Intacct is always ranked higher from an ease of configuration, ease of deployment, ease of utilization moving forward. And again, especially when we chose Intacct, when we're really just an outsourced accounting firm, ease of use went a long way in the decision making.
Yeah. Okay, so now we got to hit it, Emily. We've talked about it a few times already. You hate NetSuite with everything in you. Why is that? Is it the ease of use? Is it the customer experience? Like, what is it that has just turned you?
And do you have a NetSuite voodoo doll that you'd like stab?
No. I think hate's a stronger. Maybe I shouldn't use hate. Strongly dislike. Okay. I think NetSuite is a great solution for specific types of companies. Okay, like the companies that Sage Intacct doesn't necessarily want to focus in on, like retail, manufacturing, financial services. My issue with NetSuite comes in with their support and their selling tactics. So, for example, I was helping a organization evaluate Intacct, and they were also evaluating NetSuite. which I think competition in my world is great. But I think as a seller of one product, you need to be respectful. You need to be open and honest with the client. And in a situation with NetSuite, they were offering my client a free NetSuite implementation. They were spilling absolute
Sweet success.
Yeah, sweet success. They were basically lying about Intacct to my client. And luckily, I built a relationship with my client. They came back and they just asked me like, "Hey, are these things true? Like they're telling me these things about Intacct." And we had to go and we had a separate call and we talked through, these things aren't necessarily true. Okay, yes, this is true, but let me explain a little bit more because you don't have the right context. And then in another situation, I actually was helping move a client away from NetSuite onto Intacct. And turns out like they were completely lied to during the sales process and they weren't getting the support that they were promised. Which, and let me preference that can happen even if you purchase Intacct, if you don't have the right partner or whatever that looks like. But it's not the first time I've heard about that with NetSuite.
Well, I think what your client experience was really centered around that sweet success. So that's a major tactic that NetSuite uses to make the cost of acquisition seem a lot cheaper. And sweet success is really self-implementation, but it's not really the way it's described in the sales process for clients. And a lot of clients have a very bad experience with it. Now, there's other clients that also have the internal capabilities to handle that and do it, but there's a lot of organizations that don't. So it's interesting. And it's interesting that you said that financial services is a better fit for NetSuite. Quick number here: only 4% of their client base is financial services.
Really?
Crickets. Yeah. No, I know, and I agree. And that's just really in my experience. I really see it heavily in the manufacturing retail space.
Quick thing here: what is NetSuite's number one industry, and what's the percentage? I don't think anybody's going to get this. I didn't know it.
Well, that's not a good.
Let's
not a
see.
good start.
I know. I can
my
tell you
head,
what
it was manufacturing. That was in my
Yeah,
head.
That would have been my kind of.
I can
guess,
tell
too.
you that I know they're trying to get into the healthcare space. They just released more functionality in the healthcare space. So no, it's not healthcare. Maybe nonprofit, but Intacct has a large customer base in nonprofit. I'm thinking through. Definitely not construction. I don't know. What is it?
Professional services
The catch-all.
makes up 28% of their client base. Second is, and I found this one very interesting. Second is SaaS. That's 17% of their client base. 18% of their client base. But what a lot of people don't know is Intacct surpassed NetSuite in market share in the SaaS industry and owns 17% of the entire market share in the SaaS industry. So there's
No, we're talking. Are we talking global numbers, U.S. number? Like where? What are the figures that you're tossing out?
It's only tracked from a U.S. perspective
US,
currently.
okay.
And what data is released that we have, but that is that's kind of telling to me, and something interesting when a client is looking at this and trying to evaluate where to be. Like, I wouldn't go manufacturing currently with Intacct. And I know that we have, SDMO and Sage distribution and manufacturing operations. And that's being heavily developed currently. And I think that there's a path in which Intacct will be competing with NetSuite in the manufacturing realm, but it's not today, quite frankly. And I got a funny story for you. This happened a long time ago. So I'm at maybe I should say a bar, but I'm at a bar. I'm sitting down, and this guy next to me is in NetSuite but in the CRM. And I go to him, I'm like, what the heck are you doing in NetSuite in their CRM? Because their CRM is not a good product. It is not a particularly good product. And it's funny, that sparked a very tight friendship that we have to this day, in which we talk on a weekly basis and so forth. But they really talk about this suite of the financial services and the CRM and the payroll side of things. But I don't know that they do the other things that well. and that it's really a sales a benefit to the client base. I actually really do believe in the concept of integrated products and allowing software solutions like a HubSpot or a Salesforce to be the leader, to get to really focus their time on being the CRM and integrate that with your true GL, mid-market GL. So,
And Matt, just to clarify for our listeners, you're really talking about NetSuite's approach, which is suite success, which is what I like to call it being kind of everything to everyone, versus Intacct being a best-in-class software and allowing customers to choose what other best-in-class solutions they want for them.
yeah, well, and suite success is specific to the implementation, but the suite of NetSuite, and where they're trying to sell you the CRM, payroll, and their GL together, that's the other tactic that concerns me a little bit about the quality of product that clients are getting. Now, if we take NetSuite from a GL versus Intacct from a GL as financial solutions, there's different differences. And when I talk about nuanced differences, I talk about it from an industry specific, and I know I bring this up all the time. So a macro and micro vertical. And I actually look at industries in kind of a macro vertical, a mid vertical, and a micro vertical. And the way I can explain this is healthcare would be a macro vertical. Patient services would be a mid vertical, and a general practitioner, or your GP that you go to on a daily basis, would be your micro vertical. So as an example there, each having slightly nuanced components of need from a system and reporting and key performance indicators and so forth. And so that's the nuanced purchasing, and that's where I want buyers to really understand what questions they should be asking through this process, and where a NetSuite wins, where an Intacct wins, and where maybe there's not such a large difference, that you need to go with what company aligns with you best, from a strategy, from a long-term goal.
And I'd also like to add to that, because part of the problem is picking the right solution, right? Let's just say we're looking at Intacct and NetSuite, but the implementation partner as well. Do you have the capacity? Do you want to implement a software like that by yourself, or do you want to rely on a partner? And is that partner the right partner?
So one of the things I want to talk about, this is all about the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And we're trying to talk about what the differences are. And I keep saying there's not a ton of differences. It's very nuanced. The things that we look at, I'll talk about one specific. Dynamic allocations in Intacct beats the allocation approach within NetSuite every day. Okay. Dynamic allocations, there's two kinds of allocations. There's what we call transaction allocations, which are fixed allocations, not based on variable. We say, okay, every month we're going to allocate 20% of rent to this department, 35% to this department, and 45% to this other department. I don't know if I did my math right there, but that doesn't matter. And you can use that transaction allocation on any transaction within the system, but it's fixed. It's always the same. You're going to use that. Dynamic allocations is the concept of a variable allocation. So when data within the system changes, it changes the allocation of that expense. And within certain industries, I see this in financial services a lot. In certain industries, and nonprofits, I should say, it comes up in nonprofits a lot as well. In certain need from allocations, you need some really, really complex approaches to those, in which there's multi-tiers of variability within it. And now Intacct, it's almost a no-brainer. You do not want to go and use the allocation methodology, just the way that you construct it within NetSuite. And I don't do this every day, so I can't give you the exact things, but what's always been talked to me about is the way that you have to construct it within NetSuite is so far more complicated and harder to maintain than what the way that Intacct has approached the same capability.
Now, Matt, with that specific component, is that more of an implementation success or failure kind of reliance, or is that just this is straight just programming? I mean, this is just ones and zeros.
I'm going to go with neither. Okay, and the reason I say that is Intacct and NetSuite are configuration-based systems, not code or custom systems. The best way I can explain this for those that want to know better is like an X3 in Sage is a completely custom solution that every instance of X3 that's done is basically done differently. Sage Intacct, NetSuite, configuration-based solutions say here's a set of configurations and how to approach configuring it and utilizing a module, but there's a lot of levers that can be pulled and moved to make that happen. So it's still custom, but it's within a confinement of a configuration dashboard, if you want to put it that way. But it's not it's not the implementation people per se. It is the capability of that configuration, how the configuration has been designed, where Intacct is superior.
So it's coming back to kind of that UX again. I mean, really just how it's designed, how it flows, how people can interact with it, as opposed to the core functionality of it.
Yes, and I would say it also has to do with the way that it was conceptualized from the very beginning on how the dynamic allocations would be deployed from a function perspective. Dynamic allocations actually go to what we call a user-defined book. So what you do is you allocate into a user-defined book, which is separate. It's like almost like think about cash and accrual, and then think about this separate book on the side where you're allocating into it for things like, okay, I'm going to give an example. I have payroll. I'm a professional services. I do time. That time is related to projects and clients and different departments and so forth. And instead of having to do a 100-line journal entry for my payroll to get it in and get in and know what my profitability is by project or so forth, I use the dynamic allocations and it automatically does it to me, but it posts to a separate book. So when I consolidate, I see that information, but I also have a confinement. I have a confinement of that data, and I can really review that data and make sure that it's accurate and that I've constructed that allocation correctly.
That's a lot for one feature that we're hitting, which I love.
Yeah.
I mean, because
was a beautiful
if we're trying
explanation.
to figure out the differences, that's kind of the important way to go. And back to Emily, your I'll call it distaste for NetSuite, which what you alluded to. It sounds like, because we're coming off a real technical component there, it sounds like your beef is more on the kind of the front end, the sales process, as opposed to the actual software itself. I mean, is that a safe assumption? Are there features similar to like what Matt's describing here inside Intacct versus NetSuite that you feel are just either inferior or phenomenally better than one or another?
There's definitely a couple other inferior NetSuite modules. But I think my concern with NetSuite comes with their support and their sales process about these modules. So for example, Matt just went into great detail about the allocations module inside of Sage Intacct. If you were to get in a competitive situation with Intacct and NetSuite, I would wonder what NetSuite would say about that, their module. Would they say it's the same as Sage Intacct? Would they even show you how it's different? These are things I don't know.
It sounded to me, Doug, like she said, I've experienced some my experiences have lost trust, have taken trust away from me that my clients are getting good information in their buying journey. That's what it sounded like.
Yes. And one thing about, my firm, my team, our practice is we're consultants at heart. So if Intacct is not the right solution for you, that's fine. Like, we do work with a NetSuite partner that practices the same as us, and we'll send you to them. So, it really just depends. We're going to be honest with you if Intacct is not the right fit.
All right. So to kind of jump into, it's not like a closing argument thing, but just personal experiences from the two of you. All right. Why would somebody choose one over the other? We're talking NetSuite, Intacct on the table. Everything else has been excluded. You got a customer who's looking to implement this thing. The pricing is comparable, so that's out of the picture. What's it really going to come down to between NetSuite and Intacct? Matt, you want to kick that one off?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to be a broken record. What industry are you in?
Oh, come on. We're now going to do this one again. All right.
No.
Okay,
I'm not asking.
No, it's fine.
I'm not asking you to give that to me. That is my one question that I would have for anybody doing it.
I was looking
So,
forward to the role play because you actually went through some of the statistics of the industry. So I was going to make it really hard for you, but
no,
no,
do it.
that's
Come
okay.
on, come on.
No,
Let's
no,
go. Let's
please.
go.
It depends on your industry. We'll leave it at that.
Well, it depends on your industry. And my team makes fun of me because they'll ask me for questions, and I'll always start with it depends. Depends on the industry, but also within that industry, what is your feature need? What is important to you? Within that product, and there's different levels of need. I mean, there's financial services firms that don't need dynamic allocations, and therefore that argument comes out of the equation. Same thing with, and I'm not going to use nonprofits because nonprofits always win with Intacct, in my opinion, because of the grant solutions that are in there. Healthcare. I think that you have some organizations need the HIPAA compliant audit tracking that is in Intacct, and I'm not sure what NetSuite provides on the healthcare side to.
And I can interject here. So NetSuite in their last conference released that I say they loosely, will sign a BAA with the client. It's different because Intacct themselves will sign a BAA to maintain HIPAA compliancy with the client. NetSuite outsources their BAA, and I'm not sure how that works. I haven't done enough research, but I can tell you that is a thing.
You shouldn't be listening to this if you're even listening to this. You should be listening to this and saying, now I'm going to buy Intacct. I want you to listen to this and say, man, I know that I need to ask a lot more questions as I go through this buying cycle and really understand what I'm trying to achieve within the software, what I'm trying to automate. I'll give you another quick little silly story. The way I operate and manage my finance team, every so often, maybe once a month, my question is any of you doing any of your work in Excel? If somebody raise their hand, I'm like, okay, what are you doing?
You're fired.
No.
You are the big boss.
He just comes in swinging every day.
I'll be like, so tell me what you're doing. And they'll tell me, I'll say, okay, this is how we're going to solve this. So it's in the system. I'm here in Canada. I was here for Account Techs, and Aaron Harris talked the first day. I was thankful to be asked to be on the panel the second day. Not my point. Aaron Harris talked about the continuous close, what Intacct's goal of a continuous close. And the concept of continuous close is the idea is that we're not waiting for the month to get real-time data. Every day is a close. Every day we're fully reconciled, basically. We're fully reconciled. We might not finalize that bank reconciliation process within Intacct, but we're fully operational on a day-to-day basis. The only way you get there is if everything you're doing is in the system. And the reason I bring all this up is that those are the processes. When I talk to clients that are looking to change systems, it's what are you currently doing in Excel? What reports aren't you getting in the system? What's your approval processes? How manual are those? These are all the questions that give an idea of what feature sets, what modules are necessary to solve those problems. And now you can make an educated decision as to what product wins for your organization.
And kind of feeding off of which one is, going to be the best fit for you. Obviously, industries, that's going to be the first starting point and everything. The second component is probably size. And,
I hate that one.
Well, yeah, I know you probably do more than anybody. But
well,
it is what it is.
I just had multiple conversations about why this needs to go away in a conversation.
Well, that's what I was leading to. So over the years, by the way, I am Switzerland. I am as neutral as you can possibly be with my software. You go to our website. I don't have any software providers anywhere. I got no official partner, none of that. Right?
Do you guys even have an accounting software?
Of course you do. I'm not going to share anything about that though. Listen, I got my hands in a lot of pots. All right, but realistically, something I've heard over the years, again, you can call BS or no BS on this, but I want to put the statement out there. I've heard multiple times that people go, whatever program I'm on currently, whether it's QuickBooks or Intacct or any of the other players out there, I outgrew it and I needed a true enterprise solution because we just got too big. So NetSuite was the next logical step for us kind of in that journey. Whether they were sold that messaging, whether they heard it from somebody else, God knows what it is. Is there any truth to that? whatsoever in the two of your opinions on the sense that if we're looking at a true enterprise level, large organizations, NetSuite should win out every time?
I hear that all the time. So, I'm working with, someone who's on QuickBooks, and they think Intacct, in their imaginary scale, they think Intacct is lower than NetSuite all the time.
Lower in terms of like
Lower in terms
organizations
of
that sizes that use it, like what?
yeah, in size that they use it, in capability and
Sure.
functionality. And honestly, I'm going to give kudos to NetSuite. They do excellent advertisement. You can see NetSuite advertisement. You can see Oracle advertisement everywhere. I think Sage is going there. They, I think last year they just sponsored MLB. So they're trying to get, their name out there. They're trying to get people to recognize the Sage brand. But I think NetSuite has done an excellent job of that. And that's where that's stemming from. From a, hey, I'm on QuickBooks, I need to evaluate an ERP. You need to look at Intacct and NetSuite. As we've just spent however long, 30 minutes talking about, they're essentially the same product with just nuances between them.
Matt, thoughts on the true enterprise dominance that is claimed, at least publicly, by NetSuite?
Is NetSuite SAP?
It seems like this is a double-edged question here.
Both Oracle products, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think the fact that NetSuite has the Oracle name gives that perception, because if you look at it, Intacct and NetSuite attack the same client base or target market. Now, again, industry could change that, but not size. Neither of them are suited for a 40,000 person organization. Okay. Again, what am I doing? I'm doing my own stupidity, and I'm sorry about that. I don't care how many employees. I don't care what your revenue is. I care what your needs are. And even a lot of accountants that I talk to, they're like, people don't go to Intacct until like 5 million in revenue. I'm like, no, that's not true. Or they need to be at least 50 employees. No. Well, this is not the conversation we should be having.
Now, those come from potential customers of yours or existing customers? Who's that coming from?
Accountants.
From accountants specifically. Okay,
that are suggesting software to their clients.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm like, please, let's reframe. Let's rephrase how we're thinking about this, because it's what the client needs from a solution architecture perspective, not their size. I have examples of organizations that are $1 million, $2 million in revenue that needed desperately to have Intacct to solve issues when it came to their reporting, when it came to their management of their financials. I have seen organizations at 20 and 30 million that have no business moving away from QuickBooks. So
now, so just from like a pure cost perspective, from that example, if $1 million organization does let's call it upgrade from QuickBooks out of necessity, like you just alluded to there, because they truly need the features and functionality, whether it is a NetSuite or Intacct or whoever it might be. Do you find that organizations with that size revenue, and of course it's going to vary by the type of business it is, but does that put a financial strain on them to make that shift and invest more? Because let's be honest, it does often cost significantly more to move from QuickBooks to a more kind of holistic solution that we talk about here.
And I would like to add on, revenue for me specifically, it does matter, just because, like Doug mentioned, it is an investment. And I could be working with the client who's 1 million, but they're asking for dynamic allocations. They're asking for spend management if they're a nonprofit. They're asking for all these things, and the price is just too much on an annual spend.
I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to say, if we only look at the cost of something and what we're paying for it, we're not looking at the true cost to the organization. And yes, look, there's always budget, and maybe an organization could use dynamic allocations. Let's pick on a nonprofit here. Could use dynamic allocations, but absolutely needs grant tracking and billing, because QuickBooks does not solve that for them. And from a budgetary perspective, we have to remove dynamic allocations. There still could be a use case of going to Intacct, number one. Number two, what if that same organization has a 4-person headcount in their accounting department as a $1.2 million organization because their finance operations are so inefficient that they have to spend that cost? And that maybe one additional
Wait,
head.
let me just stop you there, because I did have a client ask me this. So you're telling me, and I'm playing devil's advocate here. So you're telling me my accounting team of 4, I'm going to use Sage Intacct. It's going to automate and stuff. So Intact's going to replace one of my valued employees who's family.
That, and then there's the or, and it's not like replace. I'm not advocating to replace people. But if you're evaluating the cost of something, you have to evaluate the full component of the cost. What opportunity cost is there by not doing it? Is your accounting team of 5 spending so much time that they're just doing transactional work? They're just doing the accounting and they're not reviewing or analyzing or providing feedback that allows for other opportunities for growth for the organization? Or are we sitting here and putting them in the right position to be of true value to the organization? I don't like these conversations. I don't like these thought processes because this is the way we've always thought about it. We thought about it from what is the cost to us to implement this, or what is the cost of the software? And we're not talking about how we can drive our organizations to be better. Simple as that.
I don't know. I think we may agree to disagree here, because when they get the price tag of Intacct and implementation for a small company, they're only focused on the number, right? It's hard for them to get. I know what you're saying, Matt, because I do this every day. But it's hard for organizations to be focused on anything but the $50,000 price tag.
I want to throw a virtual knife into this recording here. I wish we were in the same room doing this time. This would be fun. Because it is healthy to disagree, of course. And that's why we're doing this thing, because it's not one size fits all, everything we talk about here. And oftentimes there's going to be people that just solely, they're going to base everything from a decision standpoint based on the price, right? They don't care if the implementation is subpar, if it's not the right fit or whatever. And obviously those probably aren't the right fits for a lot of people to really implement, but that's beside the point. I was just more curious because you said that it's such a wide range of, we do have these smaller entities who make these investments out of necessity, and we have these larger entities that don't even need it because they have such a simplistic business model that it doesn't add or take away anything. So there really is no one size fits all. But a common theme, it seems like both of you can at least agree on this one thing, that even though we are not selling Intacct, more often than not, Intacct will be a better fit for the general organization you talk to than a NetSuite. Is that a stake? Can we all agree? Can we come together in a kumbaya circle and agree that that's kind of what the two of you have been getting at?
I'm the first to say, me and Emily respectfully disagree on things, and we agree on many things as well. So, we had a moment of disagreement, and I'm going to add one last thing to our knife fight.
You hate your hair. Start getting personal.
My hair hated me. Let's be honest. We all know what's happening in this industry. Accountants are retiring quicker than we're filling the positions. Our accountants are overworked more today than they've ever been in the past. If you want to maintain your staff, you better figure out automation and figure out how to solve some of this. So it may not be losing a head count. It may not even be getting the value-added services. I believe in the value-added services for my staff personally. I want high-level information, but you got to be ready to do more with less, and there's a real reality there. And I also want to say, we figured out how to deploy from an implementation as low as $10,000 for a small nonprofit to get the value out of Intacct. So, I don't want there to be this misnomer that every implementation is going to be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. It's not the case. Now, $10,000 is still not a small sum of money. I don't want to disrespect anybody from a budget perspective, but it's a far cry from some of the price tags that are thrown out there in the marketplace.
And that, I think, Matt, what you just said ties back to what I've been saying this entire podcast, when we first started, is finding the right partner.
Absolutely.
That's funny because that's kind of seems, Emily, what you said at the beginning, where your disdain from NetSuite stems from. It's all about like the kind of forceful sales process or the not thought out sales process on the front end. And, the customer service and the whole buying journey is paramount of importance now to pretty much every industry because everyone's scrapping over revenue right now and strapped for resources. So that was nice that it came kind of full circle there. I like that. And we're back on the same team. All right.
And I do want to say something like Sweet Success is not what they do for every single client. It is a tactic to reduce that that costs to acquisition from a total perspective. And there's a lot of firms that go into NetSuite that hire good partners to get it implemented and get a great product. And I want to be very clear there because I certainly don't want to get a target on my back from NetSuite and they're saying that we're saying falsehoods about them because that's not the case. That is one tactic. There is other tactics, and there is always a place for competition and good fit across the board, and not just between Intacct and NetSuite, but a myriad of products.
Hit that legal disclaimer perfectly, which I love. Yeah, I was going to say, like, again, we're not here to sell anybody Intacct. We're just here to talk about the differences, whether they are good or bad or ugly. Every time, can't say that one enough. Emily, one more shot at Matt before we cap this one here. It's in your court. You got anything for him?
No, I mean, I think we're doing this podcast to disagree, to agree, to talk about it. So yeah. I think we have differing opinions, and we have a place where we can talk about those things. Some people are going to agree with me. Some people are going to agree with Matt. Doug, some people are going to agree with you, which
most will.
Believe that.
Yeah, most will.
What did he even say?
That's the thing. I've tactically played both sides of this fence. I sit right there on the fence every time, no matter where. No. There's like you said, it's a greenfield of opportunity for so many people. If you don't have any competition in the space, I mean, you're probably doing something wrong, to be honest with you, because you're not winning enough. And that's kind of the way I look at this. So there's opportunity for everybody to play nicely. It all comes down to fit, and you're not going to know that until you explore all the opportunities. And people like yourselves who are out there selling and implementing these opportunities, you're going to be the ones who are honestly going to be figuring out what's the best fit for a lot of these organizations who are curious about where to go with this thing. So that's fun. To wrap it, though, to bring up the mood, or maybe down the mood, depending how bad or good this goes, I think we're due for just a horrible dad joke. That I'll give it to both of you if either one of you wants to take a crack at one.
I have one. I came.
Emily's got one prepped,
yeah,
and I love that.
I got one.
All right, Emily.
Okay. I heard this at the Sage sales kickoff, by the way. So why couldn't two dinosaurs give each other high fives?
Boy, my mind went straight to the gutter. And I won't say that one on tape here. I don't have a clean good guess.
Okay,
Matt,
this is gonna blow your mind because they're extinct.
Come on.
I mean,
get out of here. That felt like a cheating one. All right.
Matt's laughing.
Okay.
I'm laughing at how bad that was.
That was a rough one, but you know what? That's okay. That's why they're not all winners. Unless they're mine, and even in that case, maybe only half of them are winners. But that's a good one. At least that's fun to end it on. Thanks for listening, guys. Join again next time, and we'll throw up. I think we got a couple of guests on the books here coming up in the future next couple of weeks, which will be exciting. Again, so you don't have to listen to the three of us just hack it out on our own here. And then we're going to start going one by one. So similar to what we did today, we're going to go through all the competitors out there of Intacct, just to hit like Matt alluded to, some of the features, what's good, what's a good fit, what we don't like about either one, and we'll eventually see who comes out on top. But that'll be years from now when we just keep doing this. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.